What's up, everybody, and welcome back to another video from the 10-7 MMA channel. And today's video is about this question that I feel like people have been asking in the last couple days since UFC 324 was announced. Is the UFC still the place where we see the best fight the best? Because, of course, as a fan of mixed martial arts, but of course also even bigger, a fan of the UFC, I watch the UFC in particular because it is the place where I believe by and large, we are seeing the best fight the best. That's what I want to see. I want to see top level competition. That's what interests me the most. That's why I'm here, and that's why I love it. We get to see the ultimate competition and the ultimate champions walk away. But this has been thrown into question recently as 324 was announced, and Arman Tsarukyan, for example, the number one contender, has seemingly been passed over for the next title shot. Dana White confirmed. I mean, it's obvious, right? They're doing an interim title belt for Paddy Pimblett and Justin Gaethje, while Arman Tsarukyan is the number one contender. They're having a fight in January after he just had an amazing victory over Dan Hooker, and then the winner of that fight is going to go on and fight for the title. So Arman Tsarukyan is going to have to wait out probably until August, September, who knows, whenever the champ will be ready to fight him. That's when he's going to fight next. So people called that into question. What's happening in the UFC? Is it really, we know it's not a meritocracy, right? But it is obviously guided generally by some sort of a meritocracy structure where there's obviously certain people with certain amounts of hype and certain amounts of fame and fanfare will get little boosts. But in general, obviously there are rankings for a reason. Okay, it's not perfect. Then we see this next fight announced. We see Alexander Volkanovski being matched up against Diego Lopez, who a lot of people are saying, why isn't it Lerone Murphy? Why isn't it Movsar Evloev? Those two fighters are the ones that people feel like they got passed over. Now, is Diego Lopez totally undeserving? Obviously not. We have Jean Silva, a great fighter on the rise, who he took that fight, didn't have to take that fight. He beat him very convincingly. So I'm not mad about it by any means, but people are calling this into question. Now, let me start off right off the bat by saying, no, I don't think those two are examples of like the UFC falling apart and it's not the best fight of the best or anything like that. Those are specific business decisions that were made because this is the biggest card right now. I know you can say the White House card, different things, but this is a massively, massively important card. So it's arguably the most important card up to now for the UFC because they're starting out the Paramount deal. They need to maximize the star power. They need to maximize the action. They had to have a banger title fight. And I'm sorry, it's a female fight. As much as the hardcores and as much as Ariel wants to get upset and different people are angry that Kayla Harrison and Amanda Nunes aren't at the top of the bill, dude, the UFC knows what they're doing. Justin Gaethje, Paddy Pimblett, that's a huge fight. They're both huge stars. And as big of a star as Kayla Harrison's my favorite female fighter in the UFC. As much as a star she is, I get why they did it. So I don't think that all of a sudden meritocracy is being thrown out the window. You know, it's unfortunate for Arman Tsarukyan. Why he's being totally screwed like this, I think it's just a timing thing. I don't think it's that the UFC hates him. I really don't. I think they had to do this. I think they were trying to do other things with Ilya and whatnot. It fell apart. So this is what they got to do. It's just the way the business goes. They have to make a splash. People just have to accept it. But there are three fighters that do call this into question, just ever so slightly. Okay. And I wanted to point this out and talk to you guys about these three fighters and ask you guys too, what do you think about the fact that these three fighters are not in the UFC? And does that make you less interested, for example, in women's 125, in men's heavyweight and men's flyweight, because these three fighters are not there. And I think they could arguably be the champ with the exception of one of these fighters. I'm going to go through them right now. So let's hear your thoughts. But first is Francis Ngannou. Okay. When he walked away at the top of the sport, yes, I think there were major questions and major beliefs that he would beat John Jones. He was the heavyweight GOAT. He was the baddest man on the planet, and he walked away at the top of the sport. But now time has passed. He's getting older in age. He had one MMA fight, and he had that Anthony Joshua loss, that really, really bad loss. So I think when he left, the UFC was very worried that the image and brand of the UFC as the best fight, the best, was going to be hurt and was going to crumble. I think now it's a non-issue. People aren't really talking about Francis Ngannou. Plus, John Jones has come back in the mix. So I think there's a lot of excitement at heavyweight, and people aren't questioning it so much. I think some people maybe even think Tom Aspinall would beat Francis Ngannou. I believe John Jones would beat Francis Ngannou just because of the skill differential. But anyways, this was the first time when people maybe started to have some questions. I know there was Fedor back in the day, other fighters, I'm sure. but at least in this modern era, Francis was the big one, and he's still active. He's outside of the UFC. So this is kind of the first fighter in the heavyweight division that maybe calls this idea into question. The second fighter, my favorite female MMA fighter on the planet, Dakota Ditcheva, who I do believe would beat Shevchenko, Weili Zhang, if she stayed up at 125, anybody, Alexa Grasso, I think she beats anybody in the UFC. She is the best female fighter at 125, in my humble opinion. And it is a travesty that she's not in the UFC, but she's very young. She's 27. I do think eventually she'll be in the UFC, but it's not the best look, in my opinion, that she's such a star and could just be an even bigger star in the UFC, and she's not in the UFC. Why has that happened? She probably got a great deal from the PFL. She's probably looking out for her family. Maybe the UFC doesn't want to make a habit of spending a ton of money on her and having other maybe that driving up the offering price for other fighters with some hype and some. I don't know what the rationale is. Maybe it was just straight up Dakota Ditcheva doesn't want to come over yet. Whatever it is, this is something to consider. She's probably the most promising fighter, the best fighter that's outside of the UFC organization right now, arguably. But maybe also Muhammad Mokaev, which I'm going to get to in a second. But we see that Dakota Ditcheva is another one of the best, one of the top in the world that's not in the UFC. But the silver lining here is she will be in the UFC soon. I do believe that. Just like Kayla Harrison eventually made her way over, I do think Dakota Ditcheva will join her as well. So this one's okay. She's gonna migrate over, and then we'll see what she's got against these other amazing fighters. Last but not least, we got Muhammad Mokaev. Now, this is the big disappointment to me. He was in the UFC. Flyweight legend, was undefeated, still undefeated. He's now had a fight at Karate Combat 1. He just had another fight. He's I think the champion at another organization. I can't remember if it's one or which one, but he's now the current flyweight champ there, thinking even about taking on the 135 champion there. I hope that doesn't happen. I think we need him back. And he wants to come back. He's ready to come back. And I do think he beats Pantoja. So anyways, the question I want to pose to you guys is, are we really seeing the best of the best in the UFC? Now, I actually still believe by and large we are. By and large, there's so many other amazing fighters that are in the UFC that are incredible, that are on the same level as these guys. But it is a little bit of a travesty, at least in the short term, that we don't have Dakota Ditcheva and Muhammad Mokaev in the UFC. But rest assured, they will be back soon. I guarantee it. I think Muhammad Mokaev is really on the right path and he's doing the right things. And I can't wait to see him come back. And he's going to be such an exciting champ. And he's going to come back as a more exciting fighter. He's literally been working on his striking game, which I think is so commendable. Dakota Ditcheva will be here soon. Francis Ngannou, I don't think will ever grace the UFC again. But I think people are kind of okay with that at this point. And fans, for better, sucks for Ngannou, but he's doing his thing. He's making money. But I think UFC fans have moved past him. We're embracing the new era with John Jones. Well, a kind of new old era. I guess John Jones is not really here, but probably will have one more fight, I think. Tom Aspinall, and of course we got Gable Stevenson, on the way. So anyways, that's what I got for you. Let me know what you guys think in the comments. Are you guys also bummed that we don't have Mokaev, we don't have Ditcheva, and we don't have Ngannou right now in the UFC? Or are you also like, okay, let them do their thing for some time, they're going to come back? It's not really any sort of black mark on the UFC whatsoever in terms of their brand of being the best, fight the best. Let me know your thoughts in the comments. Thank you guys so much for joining. Happy belated Thanksgiving, and I'll see you in the next video. Take it easy.